Hi you guys, welcome back. This right here video is focusing on the layout of your pieces on your fabric. Now I just want to kind of touch bases on two things that the instructions called out for. Remember that piece number 3, and it says it right here, it's showing you piece number 3 and 4 need to be on the, remember, wrong side of the pattern. So that means you shouldn't be able to see the numbers. So for 3, you know, when you read the number 3, it's not like that. It will be facing up. Also too, number 1, because it's on a fold, I have that facing down as well. That's not going to make a difference. But for pieces number 3 and 4, they need to be on the wrong side. Okay, you should not be able to read that number the correct way. Everything else is laid out fine, and that's my layout. I have my pieces going in different directions. If you have maybe like a one-way fabric, meaning a design or something that's all going the same way, you're not going to want to lay your pieces out like I did. Because I have flowers and it really doesn't matter which direction it's going, and because the pieces are so large, I had to lay mine out like this. But for you, if you have a solid color, you should be fine. But if you have some type of floral and the stems need to go a certain way, or a city or whatever, you have a decorative stitch, it needs to go a certain way, make sure it's all lined up the same exact direction. Alright, I'm going to cut out my fabric pieces and I will come back with you and we will get started with sewing. Again, transfer all your markings and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so now it's time to start putting our garments together. You should be excited. You cut everything out. Now I want to talk about the steps that we're going to take. The first thing we want to do is says for views A and B. As you know, we're doing view B. It says each stitch shoulder edges of back 1 between seam lines. So grab your piece that says 1. What we're going to do is we're going to ease these stitches into our sewing machine. Make sure you put your sewing machine on the longest stitch possible. Again, put your sewing machine on the longest stitch possible. After we do that, we're going to do this one right here. And for it says cut out your seam binding using pattern piece number 3. I am skipping this step. I'm not going to use seam binding. However, I'm going to use an alternative because I forgot to buy it. You can use your seam binding out of your fabric by just cutting the 2 strips off and lining up with 3 and sewing it that way. But I'm going to use some jelly tape and I'll tell you about that in a second. The last thing we're going to do is stay stitch. So again, we have to do our edges and then we're going to stay stitch, and this is still piece number 1. I like to do all the tedious things first prior to sewing. Then also we're going to grab our sleeve, which is number 11, and it should look like this. And we're going to do an ease stitch also with our sleeves. After we get finished prepping everything, putting our ease stitch in, our stay stitches in, then we will begin garment construction. I like to work in order. It's better that way. So let me explain to you what jelly tape is. We all have jelly tape. Don't get nervous and say, oh my God, I don't have any jelly tape. This is a shirt that I purchased from the store, from Charlotte Russe, okay? Inside your shirt, you have this thing, and it's called jelly tape. So, with that being said, we all have it. We utilize this jelly tape sometimes to hang up our garments. You're just going to cut one side of your jelly tape, and I'm going to use this. If you have seam binding and embroidered, then proceed with the pattern instructions and use that, but I'm going to use this jelly tape, okay? Alrighty, let's get to sewing. Okay, so this is piece number 1, and I have a Singer Confidence. So it's an electronic sewing machine, and I'm just going to put this on the highest stitch possible. Now I'm ready to start my ease stitch. This is also a really good guide. If you're a novice seamstress such as myself, you want to use your sewing guide. I don't know the correct term for it, but it has a magnet and it sticks there and it lets you know 1/4, 5/8, etc. I'm going to move that to the side. And again, all we're doing is stitching from here to here. You should have your notches cut out for you So from here to here, I'll do my edge stitching. You do not back stitch. I'm going to cut it, leave the tails long, and I'm just going to show you how to do a quick ease stitch. You make sure you don't get your threads tangled up. If you do, take a needle, but a pen, and you can pull it out like that. You take the top part and you just basically, it's like a gather, and you're just going to ease that in there. I'm not going to do too much ease stitching because, like I said, I'm going to use jelly tape. But that's how you do a gather or an ease stitch. That's it. So let's do the other side. You guys can do the other side since you saw how I did that. And then next thing we're going to do is the stay stitch. So for the same one, mind you guys, you're going to ease stitch both sides. I'm only going to show you one side. Now for your stay stitch, and this is still garment number 1. Make a mark on your garment to let you know which one it is, or fabric. And I want to put my sewing machine back on its rightful state, and this is my sewing machine size. You don't want to do your stay stitch at 5/8 of an inch because that's where your actual stitching is going to go. You want to do it a little bit lower than that. So my stay stitching is going to go right from under my underarm. I'm going to go from under my underarm right here all the way down to about the waist. Okay, so we'll stop right at the waist. So I'm going to start right under this underarm part and just do a stay stitch. Again, we're not doing it at 5/8 unless the pattern tells you to. If it does, you can follow that. I'm kind of freestyling now. Alright, I am done stay stitching. And you're going to do your stay stitching on both sides. So I will do another ease stitch right here, stay stitch. You have this ease stitch, and I'm going to do a stay stitch. And then we're just going to keep doing that throughout our garment. The next piece is our sleeve. With the sleeve, we're going to do ease stitching, or kind of sort of like a gather. Again, you turn your sewing machine up to its highest. Foot, I'm going to show you another trick of how you can do gathers or ease stitches other than just pulling it piece by piece. I'm going to take a marker or a pencil, and I'm just going to hold it behind here as I sew to give myself a gather or an ease stitch, which is pretty much kind of like the same thing. Ease stitch means you're trying to ease your fabric into a certain spot, one of the holes or whatever. And sleeves are notorious for having ease stitches. I hit this button right here just to keep my needle in a down position. So I have my needle in a down position. Once I start sewing, I'm going to take this pencil and hold it behind my fabric, and I'm just going to hold the fabric to guide it. And again, we're not doing 5/8 of an inch because that will be what we use to actually sew our seams. So where your dots were at on your sleeve caps, I don't have dots on mine because I know where to start and stop. You're going to start from that one dot and end at the next dot. Here it goes. As you see, I'm utilizing this pen and it's just gathering up for me. Nothing fancy. It's kind of hard to do it one hand, but it's getting there. Alright, I think that's enough to stop. I'll lift up my presser foot. I'll move my pencil. I lift this up. I cut it. And guess what? Whoop, there it is. To me, this is the easiest way to have an E-stitch. You're done. Use a pencil. Trying to pull this, it'll pop on you sometimes. If you have to use it a little bit to pull, you can. I usually knock this off once I get it to the way I want it, once I insert it into the sleeve. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my, I'm going to pull this out, but I'm going to go ahead and do my ease from one end to the other, to this end. This is an example to show you that it works like that, but I need to go all the way over. Alright, so that's the piece we do next. So for number 3, same thing. You're going to do your stay stitching for piece number 3. Let's prep all our garments and then we can start sewing. Also too, I will show you how to use jelly tape if you have jelly tape when we're putting the garments together. Okay, this is how you stay stitch the other side. You know, we did this side already. And I just want to show you how to stay stitch the other side. You have the right side of the fabric facing you and you just go all the way down. You do not back stitch when you're stay stitching. And that's how you stay stitch on the opposite side. So now you have your stay stitching on both sides.